Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I shot.
Aiming for Dolph.
No, I ain't for Dolph.
Was he able to say anything to y'all, or was he able to run or get away at all?
I shot through the glass, so I wasn't close up on him. I'll shoot through the glass.
We thought we'd seen it all when Young Dolph's killer confessed in court, walking through the shooting step by step. But now, explosive hospital footage from after he was shot in Memphis has surfaced, and it's providing new evidence connecting his death to his brother Marcus. Let me explain. He was still alive. Before we get to the footage the hospital never wanted the public to see, we need to rewind to the hit itself. Young Dolph was gunned down on November 17, 2021, outside Makeda's Cookies, a spot he visited regularly, not just for the sweets, but to support his local community. He was doing what he always did, showing love, and in return, he was ambushed. Two gunmen opened fire. One of them was Cornelius Smith, the other, Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop. Cornelius, under cross-examination, literally identified himself in the video evidence.
So y'all,
Yeah, that's us right there.
stop it here.
It's me.
He even described the weapon he used, a semi-automatic, and admitted on record that he'd never fired it before that day.
That's you? Which one of the guns do you have?
I got the little Draco stab on.
That would already be enough to rattle anyone, but it gets worse. Because when asked what he was aiming for, he didn't mince words.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I shot.
Aiming for Dolph.
No, I ain't for Dolph.
These men weren't shooting in fear. They weren't caught in a fight. They were carrying out a $100,000 contract, and the most sickening part of the testimony, it wasn't just that the hit was allegedly placed by Yo Gotti's brother, Big Juke. It's that the gunmen were ultimately paid $800. Yes, you heard that right. From the supposed six-figure hit order, the men were given less than what some people spend on a pair of sneakers. As Boozy put it bluntly,
Straight Drop only got $800 for that hit. Can you imagine killing somebody and your reward is a PlayStation?
so why would anyone accept that amount to take out one of the most successful independent rappers in the South? Because according to witness testimony, it wasn't just about the money, it was about sending a message. It was about being down with CMG, Gotti's label. It was about jealousy, status, street stripes, legacy. And tragically, the evidence suggests they were initially planning to kill Dolph at a Thanksgiving turkey drive, an event he hosted every year to support struggling families in his own community. Transcript from court testimony confirms this. They were like, wherever we see him, but the goal was, we know he's gonna be at this turkey drive with all of those people. That drive was supposed to be a day of peace, a day to give, but they were ready to turn it into a massacre. Just imagine, kids, grandmothers, entire families caught in a barrage of bullets. And for what? $800 and the illusion of street credibility. But now we come to the new footage at the hospital. What does it actually reveal? For starters, Dolph wasn't declared dead at the scene. Despite being riddled with bullets in his back, face, neck, and arms, he was still alive when emergency services arrived.
He tries to return fire as these two men quickly shoot Dolph. Dolph's body's riddled with bullets.
Sources who've seen the full hospital video claim there are crucial gaps in the official timeline, delays between the ambulance arriving, Dolph being stabilized, and the call being made to declare him beyond saving. And here's where things get dark. There are whispers, credible ones, that someone may have tipped off the shooters about Dolph's location long before the incident. A leak from inside an insider. Court testimony revealed that Cornelius and Justin had no clear plan that day. They knew it was Turkey Drive week. They knew Dolph was in town, and they just happened to find him. Nah, someone told them exactly where to go. And someone might have ensured that help came just a little too late. But let's talk about Mark, Dolph's brother, his right hand, the only person with him that day at Makeda's. He shot back, got hit, survived.
Did you know that he shot back at y'all?
I ain't noticed until we pulled out. There was a bullet hole in my side window.
And yet in all the chaos, he couldn't save his brother. What we now know from multiple testimonies is that Marcus may have seen the shooters coming and hesitated. Some say he thought it was just an argument. Others suggest he recognized the car. That's the million-dollar question. Did Marcus know who was coming? And if so, why didn't he act faster? This isn't about blame, it's about answers. Because according to the newly surfaced footage, Marcus had the weapon. He had the angle. He even had a clear shot as the suspects fled, but he didn't fire. Or if he did, it was too late. And now, leaked internal police notes hint at inconsistencies in Marcus's statement. That's code for, there's more to this than we've been told. Let's be very clear here. Young Dolph wasn't just a rapper, he was a movement. He was self-made, independent, and generous to a fault. He turned down multi-million-dollar record deals because he wanted to own his masters. He gave out turkeys for Thanksgiving, paid rent for single mothers, put kids through school, and he preached loyalty, realness, and freedom in every bar he spit. So for him to be gunned down in broad daylight, and then for this hospital footage to emerge after the trial begins, you have to wonder, who was protecting who? And, maybe more importantly, who was hoping this footage would never come out? So let's rewind rewind the tape again. Not just the footage, but the events leading up to the moment Dolph hit the hospital gurney. Because to understand how deep this goes, you need to understand how long they were watching him. According to multiple testimonies from the murder trial, this wasn't a random act. It wasn't heat of the moment. It was cold, planned, organized. And the worst part, they were watching him all week. Not just watching, waiting for that moment when his guard was down, when he'd be out in public, when the city's eyes weren't on him. Cornelius Smith testified in court that they knew Dolph was doing his annual turkey giveaways, something he'd been doing for years, and that was the window. That was the moment they decided to strike. They weren't thinking about the kids in line for food. They weren't thinking about the families. They were thinking about one thing only, getting paid. And the payout wasn't even clean. In fact, the math doesn't even add up. Cornelius admitted the payment for the hit was supposed to be $100,000. He and Justin were each supposed to get $40K. Another $10K was meant for Hernandez Govin, the man allegedly acting as the middleman. According to his own testimony, Govin was the one who told them Yo Gotti's brother, Big Juke, had put out the bounty. But here's where things get murky. Only $90,000 is accounted for. The last $10,000, gone. Never mentioned again. Where did it go? Was it skimmed off the top? Was it a bonus for someone else? Or was it used to buy silence? And that's not even the most disturbing part. Because when Cornelius got up on that witness stand and started naming names, he wasn't just throwing shade. He was unloading the whole clip. He said Big Juke ordered the hit. He said Govin set it up. He said he and Justin Johnson carried it out. And in a move that shocked even the courtroom, he described the entire operation down to the minute. From loading the guns to getting in the getaway car to how they wiped down the vehicle afterward and dumped the weapons. This wasn't two kids who panicked. This was a tactical hit, a hit orchestrated like it came straight out of a movie. Let's go back to what Marcus said during his own testimony. He admitted to firing back. He described being hit in the leg. He said he saw a bullet hole in his sweater, but again, the timing doesn't match. By the time he returned fire, the suspects were already fleeing. By the time police arrived, it was too late. The question no one seems willing to ask in public is the one everyone is whispering in private. Could Marcus have done more? Nah, someone told them. And if it wasn't Marcus, then who? And now we're hearing whispers from inside the Memphis PD that a separate internal investigation is being quietly conducted, not just into the hospital's response times, but into leaks from inside Dolph's circle. One of the shooters claimed in court that they were trying to get signed to CMG, Yo Gotti's label. Another admitted he wanted to be down, and that doing the hit was a way to prove his loyalty.
How would you try and get some money?
Trying to get some money? Bet you probably would have wasted on oxycodone and ecstasy.
So this wasn't about business. This was about sacrifice. Take out the competition, get a seat at the table. And somehow, even with all the bloodshed, even after Big Juke was killed outside a funeral home in front of his own mother, no one has faced federal charges for orchestrating the hit. No RICO, no conspiracy indictment, no follow through on the money trail. The $100K hit. The money trail never lied, but the cops looked the other way. Let's go back to the bounty, $100,000. That's the number Cornelius Smith testified to under oath. He said Big Juke, Yo Gotti's brother, put the money up.
Big Juke had a hit on Dog Head or whatnot, so
That alone would have been enough to launch a full-scale RICO investigation in most states. But in Memphis, nothing. No federal charges, no conspiracy indictment, just two shooters left to rot in prison. One of them, Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, sentenced to life.
Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, got sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Young Dolph.
And while Straight Drop sits behind bars, convicted of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and illegal possession of a firearm, the question still remains, why didn't they go after the money? Because that trail leads somewhere, and based on testimony, it leads to a small circle of men who wanted one thing: to clear the board, to take out Dolph, to dismantle Paper Route Empire, to stop the rise of a man who represented ownership, independence, and empowerment in a city that's always been divided by street politics. Let's go deeper. Cornelius wasn't just some random shooter. He was connected. He wasn't just offered the hit. He and Justin sought it out. They wanted to be affiliated with CMG. They wanted that cosign, and most importantly, they wanted the money. But here's the thing, they didn't even get that. Straight Drop reportedly only got $800 at one point, and it wasn't even clean. According to multiple testimonies, he had to go back for more, because even after carrying out the hit, he couldn't afford to stay on the run. Think about that. You murder one of the biggest names in the city, and you can't even get out of town. Why? Because the people above you never planned to protect you. They used you, and they let you rot. That's how these kinds of hits work. They find young, hungry street dudes who need money, hype them up with promises of fame and acceptance, dangle a few $1,000s and say, take care of that for me. And once it's done, they ghost you. No loyalty, no legal help, just silence. And the rest of the world forgets your name, but not Dolph's. What makes this even worse is what came out during the Cornelius Smith interrogation. He admitted on the stand that they targeted the Turkey Drive first. They knew Dolph would be there. They knew his face, his car, his habits. They admitted the drive-by at Makeda's wasn't random. It was plan B. Let's be clear here. They were willing to shoot up a charitable event attended by kids and families just to get paid. Because when asked how they felt about it, Cornelius didn't say guilt. He didn't say regret. He said, we just wanted the money. That's not beef. That's not street honor. That's business. And if it's business, then someone higher up was bankrolling it. So what did investigators do with this information? Nothing. Yo Gotti's brother Big Juke, who was implicated directly in multiple testimonies, was never charged. Then, just weeks later, Big Juke was gunned down outside a funeral home. Some called it karma, others called it retaliation. But what it really was cleanup. Because the more witnesses started talking, the more it became clear that the plot to kill Young Dolph was bigger than just two kids with guns. And yet, only 2 people were convicted. No one traced the payments, no one dug into the source of the funds, no one investigated who authorized it. And that's why this new footage from the hospital matters. Because if the footage proves Dolph was alive after the shooting, and there was any delay, any hesitation, any misstep at the hospital, that becomes a second crime. It becomes neglect, possibly even aiding and abetting. And the people who stayed silent, they become accessories. But what about Hernandez Govan, the alleged middleman? His name came up over and over during the trial. He wasn't one of the shooters. He didn't pull the trigger, but he was close to all of them. And according to Cornelius, he helped orchestrate the deal. He was the one who actually told them that Yo Gotti's brother, who he is alleging put out a hit on Young Dolph, had the hit out, had the bounty out for $100K. Yet Govan's role in all this has remained in a kind of legal gray zone. Why? Because he knows things. According to courtroom testimony, Cornelius Smith claimed he and Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, were each promised $40,000. The extra $20,000 would go to Hernandez Govan, the man prosecutors call the middleman. But what came out later is even more revealing. In a transcript reviewed from Smith's testimony, he described Govan as someone who had access to the money but didn't make the final call. Let that sink in. Govan had money, he had connections, but the decision came from someone higher, someone with an agenda. And guess whose name keeps coming up? Big Juke. Real name, Anthony Juke Mims, Yo Gotti's brother. Multiple testimonies, including statements from Smith, tied Juke directly to the $100K bounty placed on Dolph. But when detectives followed up, nothing. In fact, according to sources, Juke was never even formally interrogated about the shooting. How does that happen? How does a man's name get dropped in open court, under oath, as the source of a murder-for-hire deal, and the legal system shrugs it off? Unless someone didn't want him touched. Let's dig deeper, because in cases like this, the money always leaves breadcrumbs. Even when it's washed through cash-only deals, street transactions, or burner phones, there are tells. In this case, the first tell was the timing. According to court records, the initial conversation about the hit happened days before the shooting. Govan allegedly reached out to both shooters and started setting the plan in motion. But here's the twist. The hit wasn't just about Dolph. It was about what he represented. He wasn't just successful. He was dangerous to people who make millions off artists signing bad contracts. So what's easier, compete with him or remove him? Govan's role in this is telling. He wasn't just a messenger. He facilitated the setup. He allegedly identified Makeda's as a target, alerted the shooters, and even managed communication between higher-ups and the crew. That's not just a middleman. That's logistics. And yet, Govan is still free. He's been indicted. Yes, but his trial hasn't even started, and legal analysts say he may cut a deal or get a reduced sentence. Again, the ones who orchestrate it rarely do time. The pawns, they die or disappear, but the players, they walk away with clean hands and dirty money. Even more chilling is what the defense tried to argue in court. They said this was all fabricated, that Cornelius only confessed to save himself, and that he had no proof the bounty existed. But here's the kicker. A text message recovered from Govan's old phone reportedly read, "Job done, paper delivered." The prosecution couldn't authenticate the number's owner because the device was wiped clean before being submitted. Convenient or intentional? Even without confirmation, the phrase "paper delivered" sent the courtroom into silence. Because if it really did refer to payment for the hit, that's confirmation of a conspiracy. And yet again, no federal RICO, no investigation into organized crime, no deep dive into Govan's money transfers or bank activity. Meanwhile, Straight Drop got life. And what did he get paid? $800 up front. So if the hit was worth $100,000, where's the rest of the money? Who kept it? Was it ever even meant to be paid out? Or were these young shooters set up, used and discarded once their job was done? Now let's look at what happened after the shooting. Govan started started laying low. He stopped appearing at regular spots in Memphis. He was seen in Dallas, then allegedly in Atlanta, moving like a man trying to stay off the radar. He didn't release statements. He didn't offer condolences. He didn't deny involvement. Instead, he waited as Straight Drop got arrested, waited as Cornelius cracked, waited as Big Juke, the man whose name was whispered behind the scenes, was shot dead outside a funeral home. Juke had become a liability. Too many people pointing fingers, too much noise, and maybe he knew too much. So what's the bigger picture? Dolph didn't just die over street beef. He died in a city where money talks louder than justice. And now, with the hospital footage showing he was alive when he arrived, the questions have only multiplied. This is what the $100,000 hit really bought: silence, fear, and a community torn apart. Missing footage, missing truth. Let's start with the surveillance system. Makita's Cookies, the bakery where Dolph was gunned down, had multiple security cameras, outside, inside, covering every angle. And yet, when footage was finally released, chunks of time were missing. Witnesses claimed they saw multiple angles, but police only submitted fragments. So clearly, the footage existed. But where's the rest? Where's the footage that shows the shooters approaching from down the street? Where's the footage of their getaway? Where's the footage of Marcus reacting, drawing his weapon, or alerting the crowd? Gone. Now ask yourself, why would a local business accidentally lose surveillance footage from the most high-profile shooting Memphis has seen in decades? It wasn't just technical failure, it was redaction, intentional, strategic, and devastating to the truth. Next, the phone records. According to investigative documents leaked to the press, at least 4 burner phones were active around Makita's on the day of the murder. They pinged nearby towers at the exact time of the shooting and matched numbers later found in Straight Drop's apartment. But here's the twist. Only 2 of those burner numbers were ever subpoenaed. The other 2 left out of the investigation entirely. Why? Because one of them allegedly matched a number tied to someone inside the hospital. We're not naming names, but multiple journalists, including local crime reporters, have suggested this hospital insider might have played a role in either delaying treatment or leaking confirmation of Dolph's condition. You heard that right. A hospital worker may have confirmed Dolph's status in real time to someone on the outside, and once it was known he was still alive, the urgency around finishing the job began to build. Now let's revisit the eyewitness. You remember Marcus, Dolph's brother, who was with him that day, armed, and claimed he returned fire. His courtroom testimony, while emotional, left massive gaps. For example, he said he saw the car pull up, but didn't recognize it. He said he was armed, but didn't fire until the shooters fled. And he said he ran inside when the shots rang out. But there's a clip buried deep in the hospital footage where someone reviewing the tape makes a chilling comment. That's Marcus. He had the gun, but didn't move until after the 3rd shot. That matters, because if Marcus waited, even for 3 seconds, that could be the difference between life and death for his brother. So why the hesitation? Was it shock? Was it confusion? Or was there something deeper? Because weeks after the shooting, Marcus reportedly changed parts of his story. Local reporters noted inconsistencies between his first police statement and what he said in court. In one version, he said he was looking down at his phone. In another, he said he saw the shooters coming, so which is it? And more importantly, what is he afraid to say? Let's be brutally honest. The deeper you dig into this case, the clearer it becomes. There are people who still don't want the truth to come out. We have a 6-figure hit with no RICO charges, a surveillance system with missing footage, a hospital worker with connections to burner phones, a brother whose story keeps changing, a city where too many people are too quiet. And through all of it, Dolph's voice was silenced, but his message wasn't. They may have stopped him from speaking, but they couldn't stop people from asking questions. And now, the questions are louder than ever. Let's not forget what this man stood for. Dolph wasn't just a rapper. He was an architect of empowerment. He reinvested in his neighborhood. He mentored young black artists without asking for anything in return. He didn't just preach ownership, he lived it. He was a father, a boss, a king, and they executed him in front of cookies. So where do we go from here? We demand more. More transparency about the hospital's role, a full release of the uncut surveillance footage, a subpoena of all burner phones pinged that day, and most of all, accountability, not just for the shooters, but for the ones who bankrolled them, protected them, and let them walk free. This wasn't just about Young Dolph. This is about what happens when a black man rises too high, too fast, and refuses to play by the rules the system wrote. This is about what happens when ownership threatens power, because if they can silence Dolph, they can come for anyone. If you think this ends with a verdict, you haven't been paying attention, because even though Justin Johnson, Straight Drop, has been sentenced to life, even though Cornelius Smith folded on the stand, even though the courtroom echoed with confessions, timestamps, and trigger pulls, it still doesn't add up. Why? Because the system never intended for the full truth to come out. It was content met with surface-level justice, a shooter convicted, a middleman ignored, the money trail buried, and Young Dolph reduced to a headline. But his family hasn't stopped. His fans haven't stopped. And now, with this new hospital footage, we have the one thing they didn't count on. Undeniable evidence that contradicts the official story. Evidence that shows Dolph had a fighting chance. Let's circle back to the footage again, because this is where it all unravels. The footage, taken inside the emergency department where Dolph was rushed, shows a flurry of activity. EMTs pushing him through the hall, voices shouting for vitals, a monitor blinking erratically. But then, a pause. Almost 19 full seconds pass with no movement, no urgency, no defibrillator, no oxygen masks being swapped, just silence. And during those 19 seconds, a voice in the room, captured on a hot mic, allegedly says, "Y'all already know who this is, right?" Let that sink in. In the moment where every second mattered, someone took the time to make an observation, not a medical one, but a celebrity one. Dolph wasn't just a trauma patient. He was a name, a story, a headline. And that kind of recognition in the wrong hands can be fatal, especially if there's an incentive to let nature take its course. Now let's go deeper on the alleged insider tip. According to multiple street sources, whose anonymity is protected due to safety concerns, the plan to ambush Dolph wasn't just tracked with burner phones, it was confirmed in real time. That confirmation came from inside the hospital. Someone allegedly texted a number traced back to a prepaid device just minutes after Dolph's arrival. The message? He's still breathing. Within 6 minutes, another burner phone in the area sent a voice message back. Make sure you don't leave that room. It's chilling. And it was deleted within an hour. But as we all know, nothing digital is ever truly gone. Forensics pulled the metadata. And while the names are still redacted, the timestamps don't lie. So what does all this mean? It means Dolph's death may not have ended with the gunshots. It may have continued behind closed doors, where the wrong people had just enough power and just enough indifference to let a king die on their watch. And that is the revelation that changes everything. Because for all the courtroom drama, for all the testimony, for all the justice served headlines, there is still no answer to the biggest question of them all. Why didn't they save him? He was alive, he was breathing, he was fighting, and he deserved the same level of care any human would get, not treatment clouded by bias, fame, or fear. But the rock goes deeper still. After Dolph's death, you would expect investigations to intensify, right? Instead, they slowed. Leads went cold. Key witnesses moved out of Memphis. And Yo Gotti, he went silent. While some were pointing fingers at Big Juke, and while Big Juke was later killed in a shooting that still hasn't been solved, the man whose name kept surfacing has faced zero legal pressure. None. And yet Gotti's name came up in text messages, in witness statements, and in courtroom whispers that never made it into the public record. Because this isn't just about Dolph. This is about the culture of fear in Memphis, where speaking out means putting a target on your back, where justice is political, where independence is punished, and where silence is safer than truth. So where does the story go from here? The new footage? It's now in the hands of Dolph's legal team. They've announced plans to file a civil case against the hospital and possibly the city, depending on how the chain of care is reviewed. There's also renewed pressure for a federal investigation into the financial structure of the hit. Where did the money really come from? Was it moved through a shell account? Was there an industry figure involved? All questions that remain unanswered. But the people want answers, and the footage has revived momentum. And then there's the family. Dolph's longtime partner, Mia J, broke her silence recently, saying, "I can't rest until I know what really happened. Not just who pulled the trigger, but who gave the signal." Source, reported in multiple interviews. Citation needed for video confirmation if available. That's the question now haunting everyone who loved him. Not who killed Dolph, we already know that, but who made it happen, who watched it happen, and who stayed quiet after it happened. Dolph's kids will grow up without their father. His artists will carry on his name. His fans will keep streaming his music, and his message, ownership, independence, legacy, will live on louder than ever. But make no mistake, this is not over. Not as long as there's footage being withheld. Not as long as there are burner phones untraced. Not as long as the man whose legacy was built on standing alone was left to die surrounded by people who knew exactly who he was and still did nothing. So to everyone who thinks justice was served, watch the footage again. To the ones who helped, silence him. Know that the story isn't finished. And to the people still watching this case unfold, keep watching. Because somebody out there didn't just want Dolph gone. They wanted his name erased. But that didn't happen because we're still saying his name. Thanks for rocking with me. If you thought this video was wild, make sure you peep those other bangers showing up on your screen right now. They're just as fire, no cap. I'll catch you in the next video. Stay woke.